ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. At Progressive, they are making things even easier. They'll help you bundle your home and car insurance together so you can save on both. Learn more at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Here's your SportsCenter update. Bubba Wallace, NASCAR's lone black driver, says that Kyle Larson deserves a second chance after he was caught using the N-word during a NASCAR iRacing virtual event. The PGA Tour has revised its schedule and is targeting a June 11th return at the Charles Schwab Challenge in Texas. Got golf back, Mike. And finally, there's a mushroom that grows in the wild and tastes like fried chicken. Its name is Laetoporus. I have no idea if that's the name. I did my best there. But it tastes like fried chicken. SportsCenter is brought to you by Advance Auto Parts. Think ahead, think advance. At any time, 1 in 4 batteries is about to fail. Get a free battery test and free installation with any automotive battery purchase only at Advance Auto Parts. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please. Is NASCAR the single least surprising place to find the N-word in the world? It's at Batard Show on Twitter. Stugotz, this is Ian Rappaport from Twitter. He is saying, I had a GM tell me the media is wronger about mock drafts this year than you guys have ever been. Point being, players are going to be taken in places no one expects. He is saying the media is wronger about mock drafts this year than you have ever been. How wronger, Stugotz? How much wronger are they?
Is there a problem with that? I mean, listen, it's going to be weird because it's being done online. There's no war room, which I don't like. I mean, things are going to get botched up. I am concerned. I don't trust Adam Gase and his ability to use technology. I mean, he might want Judy, but end up taking a center. Oh, this whole thing is going to be crazy. I think the big questions are the quarterbacks because no one knows what to do or do with Tua, and no one knows what to do there. And I think that's the big question. Do the Dolphins take him? Does the team trade up and get him? Does Justin Herbert go ahead of schedule? Does Jordan Love? And that's what makes the draft exciting, Dan. That's why me and Mike love it every single year because we pour over these mock drafts, and usually, for the most part, I say this respectfully, they're not accurate or right. I mean, they're just not. That's the beauty of the draft, you know?
Why did you need to say that respectfully?
Well, you know, I love Mel and I love McShay, and I know they're doing the best they can, and they just do it the way they see it. They're ranking these players in order, and if they were in charge of the teams, they would take X, Y, and Z. So I just didn't want to offend them. I mean, there's no need to do that, you know.
By what? What do you mean, offend them? Their mock drafts are very often wrong because all of this is the silliest thing in the world. Like,
well, that's it. I wanted you to say it, so I didn't say it. Thank you for doing it.
I mean, there was a year that I told Mel Kiper about Brashad Perriman. Like, I told him. He didn't know that he was a first-round pick until I told him. What is it? And he laughed me out of the room.
But, Dan, we've gone over this. Yeah. Perriman wasn't a first-round pick at that point. And then a couple months passed by, and Mel Kiper did more study on him, and he realized, okay, this guy's a first-round draft pick. I've explained this to you a million times. You were wrong then. You were wrong because he wasn't a first-round pick then, according to the chief expert.
Mm-hmm. And now he's a Jet. I mean, Dan, the draft is so great because of the mystery, because no one really has any clue. As much as Mel and Todd and all these people study the NFL draft and study these college players, you have no idea what a coach or a GM is thinking. You have no idea if a team with a quarterback wants to jump up and get their next quarterback. And that's the beauty of all this. And plus, locally for us, Dan, because you're always trying to tie in local to the national show, I mean, the Dolphins are really one of the big stories in this draft with the 5th pick and what they're going to do with Tua.
Stugotz, I laid the minus 130. I think the Dolphins finally do the right thing. I was talking myself into, man, they're going to do this Herbert thing and really anger their fan base once again. No, this has been the storyline for a year and a half. Tua to the Dolphins, minus 130. Let's go.
Wait a minute, though. You bet earlier that Justin Herbert,
I had him going after pick 5, Dan. The Dolphins are slotted at pick 5. So I found my over the last few days, remember earlier in the week, I told you, man, self-quarantine's got me really bumming on this year's draft because this is a communal experience for me. excitement has been ratcheted up. Every time someone presses on a keyboard, I am either winning or losing money.
It's one of the saddest things. It's one of the saddest things I've ever heard. It really is. Let's update our poll. Let's update rather our looks like tournament. The East Region round 2. We want to send you into the weekend. We want to be able to come back with a Sweet 16 here and just get this pared down. So here are all the remaining teams playing against each other in our looks like tournament. East Region round 2. This is the completion of round 2, and you can vote on these games all weekend at Le Batard.
It is not the completion of round 2. We have more to go. So
really?
Yeah, yes. We've only done one region in round 2 so far this week, and there's 4 total regions. So let's get cracking.
All right, let's start with number 1, the 1 seed, Les Miles. What does he look like?
Les Miles looks like he orders agua instead of water at a Mexican restaurant, then looks around the table with a self-satisfied grin.
I thought that was too high a ranking for Les Miles. It was good, but I didn't think this deserved to be a 1 seed. So Les Miles is facing number 9, Randy Scott. Randy Scott, the SportsCenter anchor, represented by?
Randy Scott looks like he calls his father-in-law Dad.
This is really the Cinderella of the region, pulling off a modest 9/8 upset. Everything else in this region is chalk.
Sam Darnold, a 5 seed. Sam Darnold is represented by?
Sam Darnold looks like, it's no big deal, officer. My dad's the mayor, and it's just a little bit of weed.
I think Sam Darnold is about to lose, though, because I think our audience is going to vote for Mina Kimes at Le Batard Show. What is Mina Kimes represented by?
Mina Kimes looks like a senator's young assistant, hurriedly walking behind him, carrying a stack of documents and constantly whispering into the senator's ear, "Your next meeting starts in 5."
That's so good.
It is a good one.
It might come out of that bracket. I mean, it really might.
Number 6, Gardner Minshew. You think it's going to get past Gardner Minshew? Let's hear what Gardner Minshew looks like.
Gardner Minshew looks like an Iowa State trooper who's just been placed on administrative leave for shooting his weapon at traffic signs.
I mean, it is really good. Did you see what Leonard Fournette said, though? Did you see what Leonard Fournette just said about you basically can't get in trouble? It's almost impossible. Well, I guess Kyle Larson did it, but it's almost impossible to get in trouble when everyone is away. But Leonard Fournette did an interview, and he said he'd rather have Cam Newton than Gardner Minshew.
What's wrong with that? Why would he get in trouble for saying that? Who would rather have Cam Newton?
I understand because it's his quarterback, though. Gardner Minshew is his quarterback. He shares a locker room with him.
Leonard Fournette has been through so many quarterbacks in like 3+ seasons in the NFL, 3 to 4 seasons, I think. He's been through Nick Foles. He's been through Bortles. He's been through Minshew. He wants a guy who's going to be there for a while, and I'm good with that. There's no reason to get mad at him for saying that, man.
I must admit, anytime Leonard Fournette goes live on Instagram, I tune in because he's going to say something. He's one of those guys.
So Gardner Minshew, a 6 seed, is facing Jim Harbaugh, a 3 seed, represented by?
Jim Harbaugh looks like he makes the family sing Happy Birthday to America on the 4th of July before anyone can begin eating.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm going to vote for that until it gets through to the Final Four. I'm sorry.
It's really good. This one is one of my favorites, too, because it forces you to envision this person nude. But Mike Leach is a 7 seed, and go ahead, and what does Mike Leach look like?
Mike Leach looks like he's not surprised to be waking up naked inside a crop circle again.
Stugotz, this is what I'm telling you, okay? I don't think anyone in the history of sports more looks like they've just gotten up naked from a hard night than Mike Leach. Like, whether it's a crop circle or the floor of the bed, while he's walking the sidelines, he looks like that person that you can envision. He just got up and he was naked seconds ago. Tell me I'm wrong.
I think you're right. No, you're not. I can't tell you you're wrong because you're right.
So Mike Leach faces Trey Wingo. Trey Wingo is a 2 seed, represented by?
Trey Wingo looks like the guy who pushes women and children out of his way to save himself, only to turn the corner and get crushed by the foot of the giant monster everyone is running from.
So we've got one more region done after that. You're voting at Le Batard Show.
An auto policy from State Farm gets you collision coverage. And this radio ad from State Farm gets you coverage of this beloved 90s hit.
I hit a car. I hit a car, I hit a car. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. My agent's gonna help me.
For more coverage, visit statefarm.com.
Stugotz here. Support for the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Home today is so much more than it was yesterday, but at Rocket Mortgage, home is still all about you. During these challenging times, the top priority at Rocket Mortgage is the health and safety of the communities they serve. If you need mortgage assistance, their team is available 24/7 to answer questions and offer solutions, whether that means saving money on your mortgage or finding a new way to navigate payments from their home to yours. The team at Rocket Mortgage is with you. Visit rocketmortgage.com/LeBatard to learn more. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number is 3030. If you missed any of our interviews, check them out on demand in the Dan Le Batard Show podcast, brought to you by the Capital One Quicksilver Card, earning unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere. Capital One. What's in your wallet? Dan, it's time for Straight Talk. It is brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please. Do you throw your wet hotel towel on the hotel floor? Yes or no? I want to play some Greg McElroy sound for you, Stugotz. Get your thoughts here. Here is what Greg McElroy is saying about the idea of playing college football games without fans, Stugotz, because it's a fairly ridiculous thing to do for a lot of reasons, no matter how much the people listening here want their college football. Darren Ravel is reporting that ticket revenue is 75% of the money for college football. It's 15% of the money for the NFL. That's why it doesn't pay for college to play without a crowd, and it does pay for the NFL to play anyway. So ticket revenue is 75% of college football's money, according to Darren Ravel. So the only reason you would be furthering the injustice of endangering the health of young people for no money is to put them in even more dangerous way in order to get your ticket money. Like it's rare that business is quite this overt in amateurism, but that's what they'd be coming back for, is simply money, putting unpaid labor at yet more risk so that we could get the money. And while I'm here for what Greg McElroy is about to say here, I want to get your thoughts on what Greg McElroy said.
Right now, look, football has to be played. Like, literally, it has to be played. So they are going to play it come hell or high water. It's going to happen. It's just we're not sure exactly when it's going to happen, because if it's not, college athletics will literally implode. Football programs make up and account for around 80% of the revenue of a vast majority of these schools. And television revenue is one thing, but for some of these schools in the Group of Five, the MAC and the Mountain West and the American Athletic Conference, even though they're essentially the Power Six, they rely so heavily on that gate revenue that it would be really, really difficult for them to put forth other programs and to support other varsity sports and to provide 200 scholarships annually.
Dan, he's right from this standpoint, only that for college sports to stay intact, they need that revenue from the football program. So I don't know if we need to play football. I don't know if we have to play football to save college sports. Eventually it will come back at some point. They all might have to take a year or two off, but he is absolutely right. As someone who coaches a girls lacrosse team and who is in charge of getting 20 girls into college, I can tell you that they are very concerned, those kids, and the universities are very concerned that if there is no college football season, there will be no other college sports seasons. They make all the other programs in the athletic department, they bring them to reality. They don't have those other programs if not for the college football and, to a lesser extent, the college basketball revenue. Does that mean they have to play college football? I'm not certain they have to, but he is right about his point. College sports will go away for a time if they don't play it this year.
And that's a bad thing. We're sure about that? Like, first of all, he said that it would literally implode. It's not going to literally do anything, but even if it implodes, and what? That'd be wonderful if it imploded in terms of eradicating the injustices that are all over the place there. Now, this is the thing, though, Stugotz, where me moralizing too much gets super tricky and super personal, because there's no surprise of me saying, make a giant mess. Let's free everybody. Get everybody. Yes, go ahead, college football. Implode so that it could be real free agency, so that people like the XFL would be back in business because the NFL would just buy it and make it its minor league and turn it into the business that it actually is, as opposed to cloaking it in amateurism. But here's the problem with all of that. Moralizing from this particular perch, Stugotz. If college football doesn't exist for ESPN, some of our colleagues are going to get fired. Like, we need college football and all the profit off of that injustice in order to keep people employed. This company is going to have an enormous mess on its hands if there are not college football games to televise, and the people who are going to get fired are going to be people I care about. And it becomes very, very difficult to moralize about let it all implode when those are the personalized, humanized consequences.
And there are people that I care about as well, but I am asking you, is any of that, Dan, any of what we just talked about, a reason to send college kids out in a football field and put them in harm's way? I'm sympathetic to all of it. I mean, this might affect my own daughter. But are these reasons to put college kids out on a football field and have them play football so they can save ESPN, they can save jobs? They're not getting paid, and so they can save my daughter's college experience? I don't know.
Our states can't agree on this. Our states can't agree on what is more valuable, money or human life, money or health, money or risk. And it's offensive to the people who care about humans, who care about the risk, to say, stop making it about money. But California's not making it about money. They're making it about health and human life. Florida's making it about money. Florida wants to get its economy open. And so, this is the moral conundrum throughout sports, throughout politics. And now business is coming forth, Stugotz. And you see the president is trying to get sports leagues involved he wants a full Alabama stadium, because that's the argument going on right now in this country about whether to let us outside, whether to let us, everybody listening to this, go outside and enjoy American freedoms the way that we're used to enjoying American freedoms. Ethan Strauss is going to join us next. Among other things, a shocking trade, really shocking trade that he reports as fact is in his new book. We'll talk to him about it next. Tell him, Stugotz, what we got here.
That is Straight Talk. It is brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart.
What does it mean to be a good neighbor?
It means being there for each other.
And that's why State Farm is announcing the Good Neighbor Relief Program.
We know that our customers are driving less, which means fewer accidents.
So State Farm is returning $2 billion to auto policyholders for the period ending May 31st.
And will continue making real-time decisions to best serve you, our customers.
Because now, more than ever, being a good neighbor means everything. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Ethan Strauss going to join us in just a minute here. Has a book out about the Warriors. Here's your SportsCenter update. Bubba Wallace, NASCAR's lone black driver, says that Kyle Larson deserves a second chance after he was caught using the N-word during a NASCAR iRacing virtual event. The PGA Tour has revised its schedule and is targeting a June 11th return at the Charles Schwab Challenge in Texas. And finally, Guinness World Records announced Gerard Young is the new world record holder for most push-ups in 1 hour after he submitted video evidence showing him completing 2,806 repetitions. He beat the previous record of 2,682 push-ups, which was set by Carlton Williams of Wales in 2017. Have you heard about the All In Challenge? It's a fundraising effort for coronavirus crisis relief. 100% of what is raised will benefit organizations providing food to those in need, particularly kids, the elderly, and frontline workers. You can check it out at Com, you'll find all types of once-in-a-lifetime experiences and items to bid on or enter to win, including golfing at Pebble Beach with Justin Timberlake and Bill Murray, and throwing out the first pitch at the next World Series. 100% of the proceeds benefit organizations providing food to those in need. If you'd like to participate or learn more about how these organizations help, visit allinonechallenge.com. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
Stugotz, Ethan Strauss had a story the other day as part of, he writes for The Athletic. He's the author of the new book, The Victory Machine, The Making and Unmaking of the Warriors Dynasty. You can get it wherever books are sold, but he reported a trade that floored me that was completed. It was done. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson for Chris Paul. Both sides had agreed, but Chris Paul did not agree to an extension, and so everything changed. I don't know if there's a lot more surprising than that in the book, but Ethan Strauss joins us now on ESPN Radio. Thank you, Ethan, for making the time. Can you tell me how, not how you found that out, but how surprised you were when you found out that trade was something that had, for all intents and purposes, been completed?
I can't say I was too shocked, but there is a contingent of GMs in the league, I will say, who have watched this Warriors' success and grouse and they grumble and they go, they didn't know everything. They didn't have it all figured out. They weren't light years ahead. They would have traded Steph Curry for the right price. And it's understandable. We forget that Steph Curry wasn't assumed to turn into any kind of superstar, and he had these ankle issues. And as far as trading Klay Thompson in 2011, who was Klay Thompson? He was a first-round draft pick, and nobody was predicting multiple All-Stars for him, except maybe Jerry West. So all of these things, in retrospect, they seem very shocking, but at the time, the Warriors were a laughingstock. They weren't thought to have championship-level players, so it made sense to try to make a move.
So it ended up being a trade for Eric Gordon and Chris Kaman. But what would have changed in I understand it's a speculative question, but Ethan Strauss, what plays out differently if merely Chris Paul agrees to an extension in Golden State?
I mean, they probably don't win these championships, but what's interesting is the mentality of the Warriors, specifically at the top level, specifically the owner Joe Lacob, which is this idea of people from the outside will say, oh, this means that they didn't know what they were doing. This means that they got lucky. But I think the Lacob perspective is, well, we would have made it work and won championships with Chris Paul. You know, we would have made it work. Our organization is better. We're light years ahead. We've got quality up and down the ranks. We would have made that particular decision work out in the way it worked out by getting or keeping Steph and keeping Klay Thompson. That's the mentality from on high. I think it's crazy, but it was also probably essential to the Warriors punching above their weight after Joe Lacob got the team.
But if they make that trade, aren't we possibly looking at Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Anthony Davis together? Like, they might not have lost that much that season to get Anthony Davis, so maybe that's moot, but isn't that something like what we're looking at?
That's something that we're looking at, but I gotta say, Dan, I am shocked. I've written a book that has to do with how winning championships doesn't bring happiness. That has to do with the Darwinian crucible of the NBA and how it's more like any given Sunday behind the scenes than whatever these team accounts are putting out on Instagram with the cutesy emojis. It has all these themes that seem to be very much in the Dan Le Batard wheelhouse, and you've become transaction guy. What happened? What happened, Dan? I'm surprised by this.
But Ethan, because if I ask you what are the most interesting things in your book, nobody will read the book because you'll just tell people all the. So I'm trying to help you sell your book by giving the audience the transaction that it needs. Can you believe it was Steph and Klay? But go ahead, sell your book, buddy, because I don't want to give away all your good stuff to the audience.
I have given away a little excerpt out there where KD at a shoot-around is screaming at me, "You don't know what makes me happy," in front of the other media members. I mean, that's potentially interesting, I suppose. That's something to discuss that's out there. I've already given that part away, so that wouldn't be that's still worth discussing, I think.
I'm interested in why you sat on some of this news for so long for the book, because that's my kind of journalism. I'm proud of you if your answer is yes, Ethan.
I heard you guys talking about that, and I have to say I was touched. I didn't know that you guys knew that you were trying to manipulate me for years to give away news that I shouldn't give, and that you noticed it. I was like, oh, they noticed. They really noticed the dynamic that I noticed.
He writes for The Athletic. He's the author of a new book, The Victory Machine, The Making and Unmaking of the Warriors Dynasty. What are some of the new reported details in there that the audience will find interesting?
The new reported details in the entire book. You didn't read the copy I sent you over digital, did you, Dan? I think this is. I'm going to assume that, number one.
No, well, hold on. I heard from your publicist. You've got one of those now, and I told your publicist, yes, please send me the copy of the book that you would like me to hear, and I am still waiting for that. Ethan Strauss.
Oh my God, man with the publicist under the bus.
Especially coming from Dan, there's a very good chance this is in some sort of folder and he has no idea how to access it.
It's okay. You should have gotten a copy earlier, but the whole shelter in place screwed things up. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of reported details in there about how they formed the team. You get a lot of behind the scenes of how they drafted guys and the dynamics between Lacob and Kerr and obviously KD. And I think you get a good picture of how the players were just trying to keep KD happy enough to win a championship in that final season. And they knew he was gone. I mean, that's clear. They knew that he was gone. It was not a shock as to what happened. That's indeed why Draymond and him were yelling at each other in that game back in the fall. But their perspective as players was, can we make sure he doesn't float away and we can have this, if you want to call it that, last dance, I guess, like the Bulls had. The Warriors, like the Chicago Bulls, knew it was coming to an end and were trying to make the most of it. And they came really close, but for the injuries.
What was the worst of it between Draymond and Durant? Did we see it, or was it a great deal worse than that?
I think we saw it. I think that was the inflection point. It was building to that level. I think Draymond probably felt, I'm not going to tiptoe around this just because everybody is tiptoeing around it. But in the NBA, the superstar gets what he wants. In the NBA, you have to do whatever you need to do to make the superstar happy. When KD got mad at me and yelled at me in the press conference, the players afterwards, when I was in the locker room, were trying to get me to apologize to him because from their perspective, that's what you got to do. That's what they thought. I didn't think I really needed to do that. Yeah, it's good when superstars aren't mad at you and they can give you more details, but I didn't think it was essential. But their perspective being within the NBA is the superstar needs to be apologized to. I think Andre Iguodala said to me, man, you married, I'm married. Sometimes you just got to apologize for some stuff you didn't even do. And that's the perspective on how to handle a superstar.
Do it every day. Ethan, I'm wondering, how do you think history will remember Kevin Durant? How are we going to look back at Kevin Durant's career?
Yeah, that's a fascinating question. We're probably going to underrate him because he wants so badly for us to rate him properly. We do something as human beings where if we can tell that you want the love, we're not going to give you the love. If you're secure and you feel like you don't need it, like Klay Thompson, we're going to give you all the adulation. And so that's the paradox that KD is trapped in. And we've got this other weird element that I like to talk about, which is with NBA teams, we like to focus on the fall of the dynasty more so than the rise after it's over. David Halberstam's book on the Blazers, it's not about them winning the championship. It's about what happens afterwards. Shaq and Kobe, when we say Shaq and Kobe, we're more often talking about the egos and how it all broke apart rather than how they played together. And with my book or with The Last Dance, which we're all going to gather around and watch on Sunday on the Chicago Bulls, that's about the end of the dynasty. So I think what's happened at the end with KD is probably going to take more precedence than what happened at the beginning and in Oklahoma City on the way to getting there.
The Victory Machine, the making and unmaking of the Warriors dynasty. Get it wherever books are sold. Ethan, thank you for being on with us. We appreciate it, sir.
Thanks for having me, guys. Always great.
Coming up next, we will make fun of what Quinn Snyder looks like in quarantine.
An auto policy from State Farm gets you collision coverage. And this radio ad from State Farm gets you coverage of this beloved 90s hit.
I hit a car. I hit a car. I hit a car. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. My agent's gonna help
coverage, visit statefarm.com.
Ron Miguel going to join us in about 15 minutes. Tune into The Last Dance, a behind-the-scenes look at the 90s Chicago Bulls dynasty. The 10-part series begins Sunday, April 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. And listen to the wrap-up podcast hosted by Jalen and Jacoby immediately following the broadcast, presented by State Farm and AT&T, available wherever you enjoy your podcast. Guys, it's time for the movie of the day. It is brought to you by our friends at Redbox. In honor of Ron McGill, I'm going to give you my top 3 movies all time with an animal in the title. Number 3, Silence of the Lambs. Number 2, Reservoir Dogs. And number 1, Larry Bird, a basketball legend. Enjoy what happened there?
No, the first 2 were so good. It was such a good version of 3 and only 3, and then you threw that Larry Turd in there.
Enjoy early access to theatrical movies from the comfort of your home. The home premiere of Trolls World Tour is now available on Redbox On Demand. Stream it today on any of your favorite devices.
Chris Cody, please stop texting us and getting in the group chat with your exclamation points. We would like you to stop that, please. We're going to update some more of our tournament in a second, but Quinn Snyder, Stugotz, a bit of an upset here. Mike Ryan said he would have given 2 days of his life to see what Ray Lewis looks like without the ability to be involved with your barber or haircuts, but Ray Lewis put out a video yesterday, and he looks clean. He looks great. Quinn Snyder, though, you've never seen him without the slicked hair, have you, Stugotz? Without all the goop in his hair?
Never, not once. Nope.
Dan, before we get to Quinn Snyder, you sent me that video of Ray Lewis thinking he looks clean, and the goatee does. But what you failed to mention was he's wearing a hat, Dan.
Yes.
He is hiding what's going on under that lid. How do you know how clean he looks?
Well, he looks clean with a hat, is what I should say.
I'm not doubting that. If you remember, I said I'd pay anything to see the top of his head.
All right, so you'd still give up the 2 days to see Ray Lewis, the top of his head.
Wait, you'd still risk that, knowing what Dan just told you? I know we haven't seen the top of the head, but the rest looks pretty tight, so I'm assuming the top of the head probably is as well. You're going to risk 2 days of your life for that?
I want to know if he's seeing his colorist.
Okay, put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Lebitard Show. Would you give 2 years of your life to see what the top of Ray Lewis's head looks like at the moment? How about this, Stugotz, though? For whatever it is that you get weirded out by Quinn Snyder in general, because all our looks like as it regards Quinn Snyder are always of him being something greasy, usually involved with shady business deals or drugs or Wall Street, because of all of the, slicked back hair. So this video of him is not with slicked back hair, but whatever jokes you have at Quinn Snyder's expense, just make sure you understand that he was better than Patino or Calipari in the pros. Like, he has actually had a successful jump from college to the pros instead of all these other guys. I mean, Patino just sold a $17 million house. He's got so much money during a pandemic, oceanfront here, just a few blocks from where we are. Quinn Snyder has had an excellent professional career.
Oh, a surprising breakdown of Quinn Snyder's coaching career by Dan Lebitard. I mean, where are we right now?
We're in the middle of a pandemic, and I need the sound right now for the March Sadness Tournament, Midwest region. I know I said before that something else was the overall number 1 seed, but I was wrong. This is absolutely the overall number 1 seed in the tournament.
Steven Adams looks like Poseidon's less successful brother, Joe Poseidon, god of canals and inland waterways.
Just perfect. That is facing a 9 seed that is very strong, Stugotz. Wade Boggs, very strong.
Wade Boggs looks like the old washed-up ball player living in a small town who, when asked by the pizza delivery man if he is Wade Boggs, takes a long slip from his bottle of Cuddy Sark and replies with a, "No, kid, that guy doesn't exist anymore."
How does that lose? I gotta be honest with you.
Well, because Joe Siden's in the game, my friend.
Yeah.
God of canals and inland waterways.
Go ahead and give, just to close this loop, go ahead and give Quinn Snyder a search on Twitter just to see the most recent images, because he is all out of hair product. And I think this is an actual upgrade for Quinn Snyder.
He looks younger. He looks younger. He looks like Quinn Snyder looks like a college kid. A college hippie. You'd find him...
or a divorced dad that's recently dating younger women and has found, the catalog of Arcade Fire.
A 5-seed Vic Fangio is represented by...
Vic Fangio looks like the Hawaiian tourist who adamantly refuses to be brought on stage during the luau's big group dance number.
Facing Herm Edwards. What does Herm Edwards look like?
Herm Edwards looks like the supermarket manager who says there's a right way and a wrong way to stack the cans on his shelves, and guess which one you did.
What does Stan Van Gundy look like, Bristol?
Stan Van Gundy looks like the guy when eating a hot dog has the hot dog slip out of the back of the bun when trying to take the first bite.
How about Urban Meyer?
Urban Meyer looks like the guy who tells street performers, I only have hundreds.
How about Rex Ryan, 10-seed?
Rex Ryan looks like a guy who comes out of the bathroom and exclaims, this ride is closed.
How about 15-seed Rod Pelenka?
Rob Pelenka looks like the guy at the resort pool who tells you to bring another round of drinks, even though you're not a waiter.
That's it. Vote all weekend at Le Batard Show on Twitter.
Currently, we're all living in a time of uncertainty. But one thing that these last few weeks have made crystal clear is that we all need to look out for each other and come together to protect the things we care about, including the planet we all share. That's why Allbirds is on a mission to leave the planet in better shape than they found it. Allbirds makes shoes from premium renewable materials, and they just announced the carbon emissions for all of their products before they offset them to zero. Allbirds will be listing the carbon footprint on all shoes moving forward, just like nutrition labels on food, but for your closet. Their shoes' average carbon footprint per product is equal to running 5 loads in the dryer or driving 19 miles in a car. They're committed to lowering their shoes' environmental impact over time, so they leave a better kind of footprint. Allbirds knows we can create a more sustainable future, but only if we hold ourselves accountable. With Allbirds, feel confident knowing you're wearing a shoe that's doing right by your feet and the planet. Learn more about their sustainable practices and find your pair at allbirds.com today.